If you work from home and are experiencing burnout, please listen to this because there is a good chance you are doing this one thing that is a major contributor to your burnout and you don't even realize it. I've worked from home since 2015 and I have had every kind of boss and client that you can imagine. And this year alone, I landed 3 major clients in 1 month, which quickly reminded me that if you don't nip this one thing in the bud, you are heading straight to Burnout Central. Straight to Burnout Central. Like the whole world feels like it's crumbling. The walls are caving in around you. You are grasping for air and you just can't catch your breath. I know how that feels. I have been there. I started to slip into that again this year, and I know what works to get out of it. So today, we are going to go over the one thing that is really contributing to your burnout without you realizing it, and of course, how to get over it. Let's get to it, shall we? Now, of course, you wanted to work from home because that provides you with the freedom and flexibility you desire. But if you're doing this one little thing, it's actually causing you less freedom, zero flexibility, and intense burnout. And what that is simply not having structure with your working hours. Hear me out. I understand that you want flexibility, right? We all want flexibility. We want to be able to drop everything that we're doing to head straight to the beach and enjoy our fun time. Well, when we have zero working hours, that time at the beach is spent thinking about everything that we need to get done as soon as we clock back in. There's a really, really simple way to fix it, and it's simply this. You need to set your exact working hours for each client and make it so clear to them what your working hours are. If you have a ton of clients, then you should have set office hours that they can meet with you in bulk on Facebook or on Zoom. But if you have individual clients, then you should let each one of them know the hours that you are available for them. And then do not respond outside of those hours. Now, I know this is hard. I fully am aware of what it feels like to need to people please and to do everything so well and so right and so perfect. I am a recovering perfectionist and people pleaser, so I totally understand how you feel. And what I'm going to ask you to do is going to be really, really hard for you the first time. But once you do it once, it gets easier and easier every time you do it. And it feels so much better once you're done. Okay, are you ready for this? I think you're going to want to take a deep breath because this is a big ask, but I promise you it pays off. And it is simply this. When a client reaches out to you outside of the working hours that you have set for them, ignore them. What? Ignore them? I can't do that. What will they think of me? I am really good at what I do. And people who are really good at what they do don't ignore their clients. Listen, I hear you. I understand exactly how you feel, and I know how hard this is because it was hard for me too. I may or may not have cried a little before I went to sleep the very first time I did this. But I promise you it pays off because here's what happens. You have set in your day the working hours that you will show up for your client. And maybe this is even for yourself. If you own your own business and you don't have a client, if you are your client, you need to stick to your working hours and ignore yourself when you text yourself in your brain and say, oh, I'm just going to log in really quick and cover XYZ. But I digress. Okay, back to your client. You've already set strict hours of when you will work for your client, right? That was step one in this process, is setting specific hours. Don't set big hours of like, oh, I can text you anytime between 4 a.m. and 9 p.m. No. Specific working hours with how much time you have promised you will give them. So if you've promised them 2 hours a day, then you can say, I'm available from 3:30 p.m. till 5:30 p.m. And if they text you outside of 3:30 p.m. and 5:30 p.m., you ignore it. If it is an emergency, you will get back to them at 3:30 the next day. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous because you're like, well, Sierra, it's an emergency. I have to get back to them right away. But let me ask you this. Is your client saving someone's life or handling $1 million of cash? If the answer is no to either of those, it is not an emergency. It's just not. The only true emergencies in life are if someone's life is almost ending or if there's a $1 million deal on the line. Other than that, which if you're dealing with $1 million deals, good for you. But other than that, whatever thing your client needs, it can wait 24 hours, especially if you have set the hours that you work. They can wait until the next time you log in, and then you'd be happy to make that the very first priority of those working hours. But let's get back to that beach, right? You want the flexibility to be at a beach drinking a margarita at 3:30 on a Wednesday because that sounds really nice. I don't blame you at all. And there's a workaround for this. So you've told your client that you only work from 3:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday. But it's Wednesday, and it happens to be your bestie's birthday, and you definitely want to join her at the beach sipping margaritas. So here's what you do. You let them know. You give them a heads up and say, hey, this Wednesday, February 19th, I'm going to be sipping margaritas on the beach with my bestie. Whew, sipping a margarita in February sounds so delightful. It's too cold where I'm at to do that. If you give them the heads up, then they know you are available 3:30 to 5:30 every Monday through Friday, but this day happens to be an exception, and if they need something from you, you'll get back to them on Thursday at 3 p.m. because you're out of office. If you worked in corporate America and you took a day off, they would not call you. Well, maybe some would because some people have no respect for boundaries, but they should not call you while you are at your daughter's dance recital or at your own celebration birthday party. Maybe you're at the doctor. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's not their business. They should not be contacting you. They just shouldn't. You've set up the boundary. They're not going to call you when you're not in the office. So they're not going to call you when you're out of your working office hours. And if you take the day off, they're not going to call you then either, because you've set that boundary. Here's the problem though. They call. It's 3:30 on the Wednesday that you've requested off. And what do? Your phone is buzzing. You're feeling frantic. Oh no, what's going to happen? I'll tell you, one of two things is going to happen. Either A, you answer the phone and completely crush all of the big, beautiful boundaries that you've built up, telling them that they can reach out to you whenever you're sipping a margarita on the beach. Or B, you decline the call, you deal with the anxiety it brings up the first few times, you take a deep breath and you move on with your day. And I promise you, each time it will get easier because each time you set that boundary, your client is going to learn that that is a boundary you won't cross, and you are going to feel better about it. Now, of course, there is the aspect where you actually still want to work on that Wednesday when you're going to the beach with your bestie, but you just want to do it at a different time. That's fine. They don't need to know about it. Do not let your client know that you're clocking in at 6 a.m. instead of 3:30 p.m. Because if you do, then that is opening up that 6 a.m. hour for them to text you all the time. You can set up emails to go out. I would recommend it be at the end of your normal working hours. So like schedule them for 5:30 p.m. So that way they go out and they're used to, oh, I'm not going to talk to her again until 3:30 p.m. the next day. But the point is, if you still need to get those hours in, if you still want to get that work done, you want the flexibility to work when you want to work, make an exception one day, work at a different time, and let them know that this is not normal. And the best way to let them know is by not even letting them know you've clocked in. If you have a really awesome client who understands your flexibility and will absolutely respect that you are going to be sipping margaritas on the beach at 3:30 and they will not bother you, then you can let them know you're clocking in a little early to resolve your work then. But either way, you need to set the expectation and then not respond outside of working hours. And like I mentioned earlier, if you have multiple clients, set different hours for each client. That way each client knows exactly when they can expect you. Now, if you're already slipping into burnout and you think you might be too far gone, don't worry, you are not. And there are some simple life steps that you can take to remove yourself from that burnout. I go over those life steps in this video here, so check that out and take heart, my friend. You will be out of burnout sooner than you know it, I promise.